planning a trip to the UK, or thinking about going back. In this episode of the UK Travel Planner podcast, returning guest Deborah Harsen shares how she crafted her most recent UK adventure, the destinations she explored, and the key lessons she learned along the way. From planning smarter to making the most of every day, this episode is full of inspiration and tips you can use.
Welcome to the UK Travel Planning Podcast. Your host is the founder of the UK Travel Planning website, Tracy Collins. In this podcast, Tracy shares destination guides, travel tips, and itinerary ideas, as well as interviews with a variety of guests who share their knowledge and experience of UK travel to help you plan your perfect UK vacation. Join us as we explore the UK from cosmopolitan cities to quaint villages, from historic castles to beautiful islands, and from the picturesque countryside to seaside towns.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the UK Travel Planner podcast. This is episode 156. Can you believe it? I just can't myself. And this week I have special guest Deborah Harsen on the podcast to talk all about her trip to the UK. Now, Deb goes back to the UK over and over again. She's definitely a confirmed Anglophile. And also, I will give a massive shout out on a few things that Deb does that really helps us out, is that she's a moderator in our UK Travel Planning and our London Travel Planning Facebook group. So come over and join us if you're not a member. Deb's in there helping us out there. And also, Deb is a long-time supporter of the podcast. She sponsors the podcast every month, and we truly, really appreciate that. And we know loads of you guys who are out there, you listen to us every week and you're big fans. And we would just ask as well, please, if you would consider sponsoring the podcast. It's getting so much harder for us as a business to get this information out to you guys for free in the podcast, on the websites and the Facebook group, because of all the changes going on in the world these days with AI, and things are just getting harder. So if you want us to keep giving you all this information, we just ask, please consider supporting us. That could be a one-off, or you could do as Deb does and sponsor us monthly. And I will put a link in the show notes for that, please. So as I say, that helps us massively. Right. Enough of that. Let's talk to you, Deb. So tell us, do you know how many times you've been to the UK? Just tell us where you live at the moment, and then tell us about your kind of lifelong love of the UK.
Oh, this will be easy and a long episode, evidently. No, I'm Deb Harsen. As Tracy said, this is my third podcast with you, so it feels like we're just chatting as friends, which I know we've become over the years, which is fantastic. I've been to the UK 6 times, 3 times with my husband, this latest trip with my husband, once by myself, and once each with our oldest and our youngest daughters. My love of the UK is going to be an interesting full circle with the story I get to tell you about this trip. It started with Twiggy. So I was a very, very young girl, probably 3 or 4 years old. And I don't even know how I became aware of her beyond perhaps magazines my mother had or television shows that she was on. But I literally had paper clothing cutouts that they, had for young girls to wear. I would wear them. I was very good at posing like her. We traveled extensively as a family when I was growing up. So there's tons of pictures of me in national parks throughout the entire United States posing as Twiggy. And from
That's so funny.
Faithful and from, they're absolutely all over the place. So I grew up with that obsession. And then my one grandmother was an English teacher, a literature teacher, and I was an early reader. And she actually was reading to me Jane Austen, Canterbury Tales. I mean, these things that I didn't realize were great works of English literature. It just was time that we spent together where she was reading. And that, of course, ignited everything. And of course, she introduced me to Paddington Bear. You already know Paddington is a lifelong love because I now have a cat named Paddington. So it just grew from there. It's always been something of which I've been fascinated and loved. And I studied history and literature and really was focused on all things British. So it's just been a lifelong love.
So I've got to ask, so when was the first time you actually managed to get over to the UK?
2014, my husband and I went for our 30th wedding anniversary. And, our kids had just all either graduated from college or were just starting. And it was sort of at a point in your life when you think, oh, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do this, if I'm ever going to be able to realize this. And my husband said, no, we're going. And so we did. And once I was there, forget it. I knew I was going back.
Well, and and you've just come back from your 6th trip,
yes,
which is amazing. In 11 years, that's fantastic. Yeah. So you keep going back over and over, so you can, that you're putting that love into action, Deb. Absolutely, for sure.
Absolutely, and it grows each time.
Yeah, well, that's it. There's so much to do and see in the UK, honestly, and I'm just so pleased that you're doing that and going back and seeing new things each time. So tell us about this trip. So you returned with your husband. This is the first time, the 6th time, first and 6th time with your husband.
3rd time with my husband. The last time was in 2019. He and I had gone. And I already knew I'd be going this year, but thankfully last year he mentioned, I think I'll go with you. So, which was wonderful. He wanted very, very much to travel by train. So Doug should just hop in on this conversation right now. That was something he wanted to do. And so that sort of pushed the narrative of how we planned our itinerary as well. We knew we wanted to travel along the east coast of England for the most part. And we knew that the ability to do so by train would be a little bit easier than, say, traveling into Wales or traveling throughout Wales, for example, or some of the areas that just aren't as consistently well served, unfortunately. So I said, what about, we travel through here, we'll travel some places that I've been fortunate enough to visit before, that he has seen before, and some new ones. Yeah. And, he said, yeah, absolutely. That sounds really good. So we did a lot of research at that point as far as where we actually wanted to overnight or spend several days. And based on his work schedule and how much time we could do, there's never enough time. So I wish I could just travel with you, Tracy, and just be over there for quite a long time. But I knew this time would be a little bit more limited. So we were there just a little over 2 weeks. And that's how our itinerary developed. It was just, how are we going to travel with trains successfully, hit places we want to see, be able to stay with in places that we're interested in, and just sort of enjoy being there.
Absolutely. So did you fly into and out of Heathrow?
No, we flew into Heathrow, yes, but we flew out of Edinburgh. Yes. Okay,
and that's good. We get asked that a lot as well. Like, see, you've got that ability to go in one airport and out another, which is also really useful.
I think I've only had one trip where I have flown in and out of the same airport. I think I typically do fly opposite. It just gives you the ability to not worry about getting back to your starting point. That's true. And easy.
Yeah, no, and that's a good idea, because often I know we get asked about, there's somebody maybe in Edinburgh on the last couple of days of the trip, and then they've got to get back down to Heathrow, and they're wanting to do it in the morning, and they've got a flight in the afternoon. We're like, no, that's stressing us out reading that. So night before, but flying out from there, it's absolutely perfect if you can do that. And obviously, there's lots of, we're talking before, there's lots of jumping off points in the States that you can, fly from Edinburgh, fly from London. So you've got options. Or even if you went over to Paris and wanted to fly back from Paris, we hear that as well. Or Dublin, that's also comes up quite often. Anyway, let's give us a brief overview of the places that you went to.
Well, we flew into London Heathrow, and we spent several days in London. We did spend one of those days going to Jane Austen's home in Chawton and in Winchester, because those are areas of interest to both of us. And then we went to York for a couple days. From York, we went to Whitby, then Whitby to Newcastle, Newcastle to Alnwick to Edinburgh. So all along the East Coast, and got to spend quite a bit of time in Northumberland, which is definitely an area that I adore. And I know you're a little affectionate towards it as well. So.
It's where I was born. So I'm always a champion for Northumberland. And it's, often it's overlooked. And, we know that there's the London, York, Edinburgh route, and that's a very, very well-traveled route by train. But it's like you also then pass through Durham, County Durham, which is lovely, and then Northumberland. You've got two wonderful counties there that are absolutely worth visiting, and we'd recommend it. And I know you're going to be talking a lot about the things that you did and saw in Northumberland, so that's going to be exciting to chat about. So when you were putting together your itinerary, what sort of resources? I'm sure you used our podcasts and the website.
I used the podcast, but once again, I'm going to put a feather in Doug's cap. I had purchased his train book, oh my goodness, a couple years ago. So I was reading it like it was, a holy text and trying to work out my confidence with the trains as well. I had listened to all the podcasts that you had done about the train travel. Didn't matter where. It just let me hear how it's done, from things like where do we put our suitcases to do we bring snacks? Do we bring water? What happens on the train? How do I know how if this is my train or the other train going to York, and how do I keep that straight and which train line to use? I had downloaded all the apps, that he recommended downloading, and they were such a definite help. So those were that's where I really focused a lot of attention. And of course, yes, I'm listening to the podcast weekly and I'm keeping up on what other people are writing, and that helps inspire some ideas as well too. So those are where my main sources of inspiration were. That and sort of our wish list of, I really liked it here. I'd like to share that with you. I'd like you to see it. Or we had both been to York before and just loved it. And, can we make sure to stop there? So it was a combination of a couple things. We were very lucky to have been before and then know somewhat of where we wanted to go.
And I will also just announce as well that Doug's just put his first train video on our YouTube channel. And that's all about actually getting from London to Edinburgh and the 3 different train operators that you can use on that route. So he actually travels on each of them. He shows you a video of what you can expect on each of those trains. So that just went live this week. So do take a look at our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. It's Doug's first video. So he's very excited. There are a couple more to come out, and he's working on even more. He did a lot of video when we were back in the UK. And if there's something particular you want to see about train travel, let us know, because he'll get onto that, and he's very excited about doing it. So that's good. It's great. And I'm sure with the train book as well, which we update regularly, and all the articles on the website, we help prepare you for train travel. So how was your train travel? I'm going to have to ask you now. How did it all go?
It actually went really, really well. We did break a cardinal rule because originally when we were planning our trip, we were going to be in London over Trooping of the Colour weekend. And I said, no, yes, I would love to see it, but no. So we moved it forward or back a bit further into May. So we were there over the bank holiday at the end of May. And unfortunately, we had to travel to Whitby that Sunday. There was just no getting around it. And there had been a huge rugby match, evidently, of which I was totally unaware until the trains were delayed because of it. But somehow we eked it out. And even though we had to make a connection from York to Whitby, we made it just fine. So
brilliant. That's good.
I was holding my breath the whole time thinking, if this messes up, I had bus routes planned. I had all sorts of other alternative ways planned and prepared. I thought, but Doug's going to say, I told you. And he would have had every right to do that.
Doug always says to people, and sometimes we have to travel on Sundays by train as well. It's just sometimes it's totally unavoidable, and it's how you do it. And he just said it's an element of risk. So you take the risk that potentially on a Sunday there may be disruptions to train travel. There may not be. It's a risk situation. But he just says, have a plan B and a C just in case. Because we have had feedback where things have gone wrong on Sunday travel, and people have had to take instead of getting the train to Bath from the Cotswolds, Oxford or wherever they were, they had to get a taxi at vast expense because there was no trains on a Sunday. So things were cancelled or all sorts of things happen. I mean, actually, we've got a podcast coming out in a couple of weeks' time where Doug actually talks through kind of the top 10 or top 15, I think we did, kind of top things we advise you don't do or that we see people do that would kind of advise not to. And, Sunday travel is going to be in there.
Oh, absolutely. And he's going to excite me too, and that's okay.
Well, it's to say it doesn't. You never. We are firmly in the belief that we don't say to anybody, whether it's in a consult, whether it's through our videos, whether it's through the podcast, we don't ever say do or not do, because we're all adults and people can make their own judgments and their own risk. We just give people advice and say, weigh it up and decide if that works for you, because we're all different at the end of the day. And I personally find it really affronting when somebody said, don't do this or don't go there, because I'm like, well, you know what, I'll have a look at it, I'll make the decision myself. So that's kind of how I operate. Are you planning your dream UK trip but feeling a little overwhelmed? Maybe you started putting together an itinerary but need help fine-tuning it, or you have questions about how to get around by car or by train. Perhaps you'd love to chat with experienced UK travellers to ensure you make the most of your time. Well, we've got you covered. Doug and I are excited to announce that our one-to-one UK trip consultations are now open for bookings for 2025. During these personalised sessions, we'll work with you to refine your itinerary and maximise your time, answer your questions about packing, transport, logistics, etc., suggest tours, activities and day trips tailored to your interests, and share tips and practical advice to make your trip unforgettable. After your session, we'll send you a personalised Google Sheet within 3 days with all the recommendations and tips discussed during our call. Now, if you're ready to plan your UK adventure with confidence, book your consultation today. Spots are limited, so don't wait. Head to our website at uktravelplanning.com to secure your session. We can't wait to help you plan the perfect UK trip.
No, that's exactly right and the way to go. But as you said, we had backup plans. We had plan B, we had plan C, and I guess I would have learned to hike if we needed plan D.
Well, certainly the Whitby, is it? You would have been. Okay, so I don't know. So let's talk about how you chose accommodation. So I think what we'll do is we'll talk about some of the kind of like those logistical things that you plan. So like we've talked about how you got around. Let's talk about kind of accommodation, and then we'll start talking about tours, and then I think we'll start kind of looking at the nitty gritty of some of the places that you went to. But
Sounds fair.
So let's talk about accommodation. So you had your route that you knew you were going to take. So Is that the point when you went, okay, let's start sorting out accommodation?
We started looking. Now, this was about 10 months ago. So I'm going to tell you quite honestly, we splurged.
Oh.
And yet, within the splurging, we made out wonderfully because we had booked so far in advance. One of the first place we stayed at is one that's on your wonderful interactive map, the Royal Horse Guards Hotel, right there on Whitehall, Westminster. Beautiful room. And like I said, booking it 9 or 10 months in advance, we got one amazing deal on it. We really did. And of course, we were there in May, so it's almost still shoulder season, and prices were a little bit less expensive than certainly they are now. Beautiful location, and that's why we chose it. It was just a different place for us to stay, and we thought we deserve it. The next place we stayed in York was the Grand York, right sort of above the train station. Once again, we had a suite that was bigger than our house. Not really, but it felt that way. We walked in going, oh my, oh my, oh my. But so reasonably priced that I don't know how we did that.
I have to tell you, the staying at the Grand in York is kind of on my wish list. I'd love to stay there.
I'll tell you which room you want to request next. Then in Whitby, we stayed at, I think it was called the Royal Whitby. It's where Bram Stoker stayed when he was inspired to write Dracula. It's right by the Whalebone Arch. It's going through some renovations now. It's a very old hotel, but lovely, very, very beautiful location. We had a wonderful room with views of the Abbey that could not be beat. So very, very nice. Newcastle, we stayed in a place called the Vermont Hotel. Also just very nice hotel, not far from the train station, which is why we chose it. Then we stayed at my favorite place in Alnwick. It's called the Cookie Jar. There's 11 rooms. It's a boutique hotel. That's how it sells itself. I had stayed at the Swan Hotel before, and I knew that was nice. So we were looking at that. But this came up on a search, and each of the rooms is named after something in the area. This building used to be a nunnery, and you can see on the outside how it's connected to what used to be the church, which is now the museum. So has a really lovely history to it. We stayed in St. Cuthbert's Cave. And beautiful room, lovely bathroom, beautiful views of the castle. Just the people there were the nicest people I think I've ever come across in any accommodation. The food was stellar. Everything about it, you just felt like you're staying at someone's home in the best possible way. And I just loved it. I will recommend that for the rest of my life as the place to stay. Then in Edinburgh, we stayed at the Scotsman, which used to be where the newspaper was published. And once again, very, very close to the Waverley Station, obviously, for access for the newspaper, and had a nice room. I think we were on the 8th floor in that hotel. So you had city views out of the windows. Very, very nice. But our big splurges, though, were Royal Horse Guards and the Grand York. Those were just really lovely. But like I said, booking ahead, we were able to get some really wonderful deals. So,
oh no, it sounds good. Well, I will put links in the show notes to all of those, and I'm very interested in staying at the Cookie Jar. Sounds great, definitely up my street. And the Grand in York, as I say, it's been on my wish list for a long time. So
it should be.
hopefully one of these days I'll get in there. And then London, there's so many amazing places. I've not stayed at Horse Guards though, so that sounds like one that I need to investigate next time I'm in London for sure.
It's really, really wonderful. And the Royal Horse Guards, too, has a secret history. And I don't want to delve too much. You need to go there to discover it. But one of the doormen, our very first day there, he had asked us how long we had been there, when we had arrived. We just got chatting. And he said, and this is, oh my goodness, 9:00 at night. We arrived in London at 6 a.m. So we've been walking the whole day. We've been exploring the whole day. We're staying up so we can go to bed. And we get back to the hotel. And he's like, well, when you have time, I'll show you the secret parts of the hotel. And I said, oh, we have time now.
Yeah.
We're no longer tired. We're no longer tired. And we did. We spent probably a good hour, maybe hour and a half with him, seeing it's got a very rich history politically, with World War II especially, with Winston Churchill definitely, and potentially there are tunnels through its basement, which has always been used as a wine cellar, that are blocked off now for health and safety reasons. But the rumor is that they connect to the Churchill war rooms. So it's very, very intriguing and interesting there, and well worth the visit, and well worth making friends with the doorman.
It sounds like it. I think I need to send them an email. It sounds
yes,
like
absolutely.
Definitely one that would be of great interest to go and have a look at, I think. Okay, let's talk about tours. I know, because we spoke before we started recording, that you did some excellent tours. So hopefully we're going to find some new partners. I'm always looking for.
Oh, I sure hope so.
Well, I'm always looking for recommendations, and hopefully can reach out and see if these guys want to come and join us at UK Travel Planning, because they sound like they are definitely worthy. Because we are very strict about who we work with. We only work with the best, and we only work with people that we know have basically are the best at what they do. So tell us about the best tour that you did. Tell us the tour that you just could go back and do again and again.
So the very best tour, without a doubt, was conducted by a man named Alex Iles. He says the Scottish derivative of his name is Sandy, so I knew we'd be friends because that's a family nickname. And he is an archaeologist. He's very well educated. He's working on his doctorate, and he made the entire story of history from Roman times up to modern day fascinating, interesting, compelling, and took time answering questions. It was just fantastic. We met him in Newcastle, and he took us through Lindisfarne, Holy Island, and then, of course, up into Bamburgh. I had been to Lindisfarne before with my oldest daughter, Emily. And when she and I had gone, it had been very, very misty. And I know you said there's a word for it, and I forget what the word
Oh,
is.
sea fret.
Where,
sea fret.
Sea fret. That was it. I think I could remember that now. But you literally couldn't see anything till it was right in front of you. And it was very atmospheric and wonderful. We went with Alex, perfectly clear. And so it was like visiting it all over again in a different way. I will say, of course, the tides are the most important thing, as we know about Lindisfarne. We saw a car off to the left that had come off the causeway the night before, and they were attempting to try to save it. I don't think they were successful because by the time we left, it was still there and nobody was around it. So, of course, that was a little bit of that ha-ha moment, you fool. But we enjoyed Lindisfarne. We walked almost the entire island, and we were able to see Bamburgh off in the distance, which was fun. We could see, of course, the castle, Lindisfarne Castle. We had plenty of time to go through the abbey itself and the ruins and just explore. And Alex spent time explaining how Durham University had been there doing digs, what they had found, how they found it, what it meant for the research, where the original foundation was for the abbey. I mean, it was just fascinating. He's just superlative in his descriptions and bringing every aspect of that history to life. And then, of course, being mindful of the tides, we got back into the car and drove to Bamburgh. And as we're crossing the causeway, there were you could see where the Pilgrim's Walk is already covered. And of course, people were lining up at the end because they want to watch the water come in. And unfortunately, we were a little bit more on a time constraints and weren't able to do that. But it was interesting to see the Pilgrim's Causeway already covered. So then we went to Bamburgh. And Alex treated us to a nice lunch in their cafe,
nice.
One of the cafes.
Did you go to into the castle itself, into Bamburgh Castle?
Yes,
yeah,
into the castle itself. Yeah. Now, a friend of mine, you, told me about a very odd feeling you had gotten in Bamburgh years ago as a child. I never got that. I was really disappointed. No? But that aside, I loved viewing it and seeing it. And of course, Alex was full of information about the digs that had been done on the outside and how the actual sand wasn't there 300 years ago, until horrific storms had gone through, and how much higher the water tables would have been at the time that it was built. And just the information was fantastic. So what I knew would be a great day was even better, just because of the information he provided. And we just really, it was a full day. We enjoyed it completely. And, then he took us back to our hotel. So it just was fantastic. I think he runs a variety of tours. They're all very history or archaeologically based, but the way in which he tells stories is something I could recommend to anybody, whether your interest is there, whether your interest is just piqued, whether you study it, you're going to learn something from him. And he enjoys learning from the people he takes as well. He was very knowledgeable, but he also wanted to, what do you know and what can we share and how can we share it and work on it together? So I was very impressed. His communication too was wonderful, and I was impressed with that. The night before our tour, he had checked in. This is the time, and then I don't remember if it was the evening of our tour or the next morning. Did you have any questions? He had follow up with it, and if you need to contact me, here's my, the ways to get in touch with me. So very impressive. He was absolutely the best tour.
Sounds brilliant. And actually that's what you want, isn't it? You want somebody, because then you can sit back, you can enjoy the day. You don't have to worry about getting from A to B because somebody's going to take you. Right. But you also have the time in the car to chat as well, to learn more and to have those conversations. And then you're not rushed, which you can be if you do even a small group tour. They still have a kind of itinerary you have to follow. But when you have somebody that you're with, that you have hired for the day, private guide, somebody's driving you around, you've got that flexibility to maybe spend a little bit longer, or to, or if you're less interested, to say, oh, let's go to the next place, it just gives you
No, that's
all of
exactly
that,
right.
flexibility. A bit more restricted with Holy Island because you've got you have the tides, so they govern when you can go over and come back again. And that those tides come in quite fast. So yeah,
Mhm.
you really do have to. And I do say if anybody's got Northumberland and they want to go to Holy Island, and you've only got a few days, you do need to look at the tides because you may miss out because there's nothing we can do about it. It's a
Yes.
bit like those are the tides, and you either get over and back over at that time, or you're going to stuck on the island, or you can't get over there. That's how it kind of works. But yeah, Bamburgh
That's
Castle.
exactly
I
right.
actually did go back to Bamburgh Castle. Beginning of last year, I think, because I had not been since I was 11 because I found it a bit spooky. There was something about
I
Bamburgh.
remember you telling me that.
There was
Yes.
something about Bamburgh Castle that just gave me the shivers, and I was like, oh. So anyway, I went back at 45 years later, and it was fine. I didn't have that same. But it's funny, isn't it? I was probably 11 at the time, and it still stuck with me for years. That it was like, no. But yes, definitely. Another advantage as well that you were with Alex is that you don't have to worry about parking because parking can be a real problem. Especially when you go into the summer months because there's just less parking spaces. You have to think about it. Whereas you can get dropped off and then he can deal with the parking. It just makes life a lot easier. But yeah, we highly recommend tour. So Alex, when you're listening, hopefully by this point I've got in touch with you and we'll be keen to work with us because I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who want to touch out and touch out to you and book some tours. What other tours did you do?
We also, two others I'll mention quickly. We did a Billy Shiel Inner Farne Island tour from Sea House, which was, oh my goodness, about an hour and a half on the North Sea. And he's pointing out, of course, the Grace Darling story and the lighthouse and her home and St. Cuthbert's Chapel. The gray seals were out. There were the puffins were out, the Arctic terns, the Cuddy's ducks. The only thing I was disappointed in not seeing is I've been following his page this entire spring. There's been orcas. And of course, the orcas are there because the gray seals are there. But the gray seal population is so enormous that it's no wonder, the orcas have shown up. So, of course, we didn't see orcas, but we did get to spend another hour on Inner Farne Island itself. And that was fun. You're sort of walking amongst the puffins and all of the birds. And, they're warning us, wear something over your head because the Arctic terns nest in the ground. And if you get close to their eggs, they're going to attack.
Yep.
And they did.
Yep.
But, you just kept going. And of course, they're protecting them. But that was an experience, too. That island was just stunning and amazing.
I'm very jealous. I have to just interject that I am very jealous that you did this because I have not. I've been to sea houses since I was a child, literally. My dad used to take us at a weekend anyway, but I have never done that boat trip. And I've been out there before, and it's just been the wrong time of year or the wrong weather or whatever. So that's another one that I really need to. And I've had other people say, "Oh, I've been." I'm like, I've not seen the puffins and the Farne Islands. So yeah, I'm jealous.
They're just as sweet as you say. Oh, they were an enormous amount of fun. In fact, there was a couple on the boat. I think they were from Poland. They had been on the same tour the day before too. They loved it so much. It was like, we're going on it again. And they were taking photos the whole time and, with some really impressive looking cameras and so forth. But it was fun. It's not something I'd recommend for anybody who doesn't like being out on the water because you are definitely on the boat being tossed. That's the correct word, left to right, backwards and forwards. You will get wet. You will need rain gear, but it was a blast. It was so much fun. I enjoyed it so much.
Well, that won't be one for Doug because he doesn't do boats, but I'll definitely add that. I honestly, considering I'm from Northumberland, I feel a bit embarrassed to say that I have not done that, but I will definitely add that onto my list. And actually, I think there's a link in our guide to Northumberland actually to that Billy Shields boat trip anyway, so you can check that out. Yeah, and the third tour, third one?
And our third tour was Robbie's tour. And we had booked it when you had the promo code for it as well. So we had booked that a while ago. And we went to the West Highlands, Lochs and Castles. That was the name of that tour. It's just a one-day tour from Edinburgh. But we went to the town of Luss on Loch Lomond. And we went to Inverary. We had the option to go into the castle or visit the town. And we chose to wander about the town and just sort of enjoy the fishing port. It was very, very beautiful. we saw the ruins of Kilchurn Castle, and he took us there because that and Inverary were the Campbell clan, and just to show us the different places. We went to, then he took us to see 3 hairy coos at a farm. I think it was Honey, Hamish, and oh my goodness, I can't remember, Holly.
Oh.
So there were 2 black ones and a ginger one, and they just were posing like they knew they were the stars that people wanted to see. And then we went to Doon Castle, and we did go into there. They had an audio guide for it, but it's very much based on the Holy Grail, which was very interesting. I love that movie, but I like castles and the history, so it was. I enjoyed the castle a lot, but not the audio tour as much, which, that happens.
Well, yeah.
but it was a great day out. And then on the way back, we saw the Kelpies, in Stirling Castle.
They're lovely, yeah.
Just sort of, it was a nice day, full day, but very, very, very nice day.
And there's some really good tours from Edinburgh. You've got such a lot of choice, and Rabbi's offer a lot of really good, and the small group, and you weren't in a massive, great big bus.
No, we had 15 or 18. I can't remember which, but one of the 2 on our group. And no, it wasn't a large group at all. So you're not tied up waiting for 60 people to get on the bus or whatever. It was lovely. And our driver Martin, very, very affable and knowledgeable, and tried to make time for all the people, and answer all their questions. So it was a good day.
Okay, so it's good to know that you did some great tours, and as I say, hopefully we'll reach out to Alex, and hopefully he'll come on board. Come on, Alex.
Absolutely.
And let's talk about food, because I'm still leaving your favourite experiences and places to last, because I think that's a great. Okay. I'm going to be very excited to ask that bit, but let's talk about food. What did you enjoy when you were there? What did you try?
Well, let me tell you about the new place that we had cream tea. In York, I had been following these 2 men who had bought one of the oldest house in York. It was built in 1316, and they have run a tea house there for the last 4.5 years. And I've been following them and following their story, and I told my husband, we have to find this. So we knew where it was located, and we went there our full day that we had in York. And they were so kind, Thomas and Tony, so kind. We ordered the cream tea for 2 because right time of the day, and this is what we wanted. There's only, because it's such a small building, there's the downstairs where they have a little kitchen, and then their display of goods, and you can get takeaway there. And then you go up the stairs, and there's 6 tables, maybe 8. At the top of the stairs. We had the table right in front of the window that overlooked the street, which is really nice. They serve the cream tea on beautiful china. I mean, just gorgeous setting. Scones and your clotted cream. It was raspberry preserves and then fresh fruit. And it was superb. It just was fantastic. Everybody exclaims over Betty's, and I love Betty's, and I've been there and I enjoy it. I'm going to tell you they were better. And better price too. And they also serve sandwiches for lunches or breakfast and that type of thing as well. The most wonderful looking pastries and cakes. And I'm just telling, if you're in York and you think, well, Betty's has a line, I may not be able to get in, queue up for this place and you won't be disappointed. It was absolutely amazing.
Okay, so give them another shout out.
Okay, it's the Old York Tea Room. It's in Goodramgate Road, and Thomas and Tony run it. They're fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. The queue is worth it. We maybe waited 15 minutes, and it's absolutely spectacular. So,
well, I am.
Please.
I was going to say, I'm going to be going to go and definitely visit Thomas and Tony and have some of these cream teas next time I'm in York for sure. I'm adding those into my.
I know you like your cream
tea. I do, and this sounds too good to miss up. So, yeah, that's definitely in my itinerary. So I'll be looking forward to meeting the guys and checking out the tea rooms. It sounds fabulous.
It really and truly was. Beyond that, we went to Magpie's Cafe in Whitby, of course. In fact, we ran into a man down at the harbor who grew up in the area, and his grandparents had a house just on the East Cliff. And he was talking to us, and how, have you been here often? I said, it's just my second visit. He goes, it's about my 150th. And then he tells us, of course, his grandparents had lived there. And of course, he's still in the area. And so my husband asked, what do you recommend for dinner? And he goes, oh, magpies. Well, I know he was telling the truth because he was behind us in the queue. So he was waiting for his wife, and within about 10 minutes of us waiting, he was back there too. And so that was delicious. And I'm glad that I got to eat there, because the last time I was in Whitby, I didn't have the opportunity. So that was nice. A beautiful dinner. But one of the best fish and chips we had was actually back in York at a place called Drake's Fish and Chips. And it was just a beautiful little pub, beautiful meal. It was extraordinary. Beyond that, we tended to pick up, jacket potatoes here or there, or we were on the go all the time. So we didn't really spend a lot of time eating, if you will, in any big place.
I don't know about you, but we do if we had a B&B, then we have a good breakfast, and then maybe later on in the day we'll get a meal deal. I'm just such a big fan of meal deals, going and getting your sandwich, your drink, your piece of fruit or crisps or chocolate bar, whatever you want, at a good price. All of the, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Marks and Spencer's, you'll find all of them have got these offers, and they're just worth popping in, and they're really good for your budget as well, because like everywhere, UK is getting more and more expensive. But also, I'm also going to mention, because you haven't said anything about sticky toffee pudding.
I only had it twice.
Because I know that you have a weakness for that.
I love sticky toffee pudding. No, you're exactly right. And I only had it twice. So, I controlled my urges much more this time.
You were good. You were definitely very good. Okay, so let's go back to talking about some of the. So let's talk about your favorite experiences and the favorite places that you went, because you did cover quite a few amazing places. So I know I'm putting you on the spot here. But what were the standouts for you?
Well, I will tell you something that occurred to me, because we've been talking about some of our favorite places that was pure happenstance. And just because of the situation, it was quite magical. The Chelsea Flower Show was going on in London while we were there. The day we arrived, unbeknownst to us, William and Catherine were having a tea party in Buckingham Palace. We're walking down the mall at, 6 o'clock, 6:30, and these people are all coming towards us, all dressed up in their beautiful fascinators, their, wonderful looking suits. And what on earth? And as we got closer to Buckingham Palace, it had obviously just ended, because more and more people were coming out. The King's Guard was marching back to Wellington Barracks. So that was sort of a fun experience, totally unexpected, and just one of those things that we just happened to be there. Unfortunately, not to see William and Catherine. I wish we had, but to see the people that were leaving.
I was going to say, next time, I think you guys should get an invite. I genuinely do. I think we need to be reaching out and saying, hey, William and Kate, we need to get an invite to these garden parties. Seriously, we want to get inside and check it out and be able to dress up and get a fascinator. That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yes. Let's just call it research.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. You never know. So
no, you never know. That was fun. And that was just by chance. One of the things that my husband really enjoyed is once we got to Edinburgh, we had walked from one end of Princess Street Gardens to the other, and just soaking. First of all, it was a gorgeous day, so everybody's outside, obviously, because the sun was shining, and it was just beautiful. But it's a beautiful park anyways. But at the end of May, all the flowers are blooming, and the fountain that is there just has masses of gorgeous flowers and bushes around it. And just walking from one end to the other was just one of those moments that you're not doing anything but enjoying. And it really was a beautiful standout moment for us. We went to see The Devil Wears Prada at the West End when we were in, and that was fantastic. And I always think, if you get a chance to go see a play or go see something, that was just awesome.
That's on my list, but it's quite pricey. I did look last time and I went, I really want to go and see it. And I was like, how much is that? That'll be on another list, I think, but I definitely would like to go and see it. So worth it? Good to go?
Oh, it was definitely worth it. Vanessa Williams was in the lead role, and she was phenomenal. you sort of forgot that Meryl Streep played the character, and I love the movie, so it's no slam to that. It's just that Vanessa Williams owned it. And the casting for Nigel and for Emily was just superb. It just was one of those things where they cast so well and played their roles so well that yes, I'm immersed. I'm involved. It was beautifully done. And the music was fantastic. It just was a wonderful, wonderful night and a wonderful experience. So we really enjoyed that as well, too.
Brilliant. And any other standouts?
The other standout is another one of those, just we happened to be at the right place at the right time in Whitby. Our hotel room, as I mentioned, overlooked the Abbey, and it had been very, very windy. And as the night progressed, of course, it got cooler with that. So we went back to our room as, it got later, and had made hot chocolate, and we're sitting at our window just watching. We watched the sun go down. And there's the Abbey, there's the harbor, and it just was gorgeous. And by chance, my husband was awake at 4:30 in the morning. He saw it come up, and I woke up. And so we have these bookend photos of the sunset and the sunrise. And it's just, wow. One of those moments that you look at and think, how fortunate were we?
It's funny how those moments stick in your brain, though. They stick in your mind, and those are the memories. And it's I just think it just made me think of a few years ago when Doug and I went to Orkney, and I was awake it was light. It's light there. It was in the summer, so it's light. It doesn't get dark. But I remember looking out the bedroom window, and we weren't very far from the Ring of Brodgar, and you could see it. Mm-hmm. It was really close, but this was like in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and it was still light, and it's just so atmospheric and just, I don't know, really special. I can still think about it now. I close my eyes, I can still see it, and I was just like, oh wow, this is, and it's those things that you remember, and you kind of go, oh, the people you meet, the places you kind of experience, and those kind of, just say those kind of more surreal kind of things where you're just in the moment, completely and utterly immersed, aren't you?
You really are. And you're so appreciative of just having that moment and having that time to appreciate where you're at and soak it in.
So I know you'll be planning a next visit. So I'm going to ask.
I think you heard that.
Yeah. I was going to say, ask your husband.
Yeah.
So because you've been quite a few times to the UK, so if somebody's planning this and thinking like where would they go on a return visit, what would you recommend? Where, I know you have certain places that you love, like Northumberland, but where would you kind of say? Would you say to people like, yeah, spend a couple of days in London, but get out and go and see a bit more, because that's what we say all the time.
Yes, but it's true. London is phenomenal. You cannot be bored in London. Samuel Johnson was absolutely right. You would never tire of London. But it's not the UK. It's not representative of the UK. I absolutely love going to Canterbury and Dover. That's a beautiful area. But the Lake District is a beautiful area. Yes, I'm hop skipping. I think, oh my God, of course, the Cotswolds. And that gets a lot of publicity, if you will, because it is so beautiful and you see it on posters, and that's so well worth the visit. Bath is so worth the visit. My personal favorite too is Wales. I just adore Northern Wales. But to me, and I don't know if you see this or not, if you would agree, but Northern Wales and Northumberland are very close to me in kindred spirit, sort of in the feel that you get. People just pass through. They don't visit, they don't stay, and they really should, because there's so much to see and so much to enjoy, and the people are just so welcoming. And I think that's part of the attraction as well. Towns like Chester, I don't think get enough publicity, and what a find Chester is, and how
Chester's amazing, yeah,
isn't it? Yes, it really is. So yes, get out of London and
actually, a lot of those places like Canterbury, Winchester, you mentioned, Bath, they're very easy day trips. So,
absolutely.
You can jump on the train and go and visit. I'm glad you went to Winchester. It's a favourite of mine.
I loved it.
The cathedral is amazing. It's a lovely city to visit and explore. So I'm glad that you did that. Now I'm gonna hop over to asking, did you buy anything when you were there that you brought back? Because obviously you've been quite a few times, so I don't know if souvenirs is something that you go for or if there's stuff that you always buy when you go.
So yes, I always purchase prints of ruins, cathedrals, that type of thing. This is the first time we're visiting castles. So we got to go to Holyrood House Palace, which I absolutely loved. And so I have a print of that I'll frame in a black frame, and that goes up on my wall. So I did get that. But the thing that I knew I was getting when I went over, because we did go to Chawton, to Jane Austen's house, was my copy of Sense and Sensibility. Now, this is my 5th copy of this book. But this is the only one from her house. And it's my favorite novel of hers. It's even got the gold binding. I mean, so that was something that I knew I was getting. There's absolutely, this is what I'm absolutely getting. And I did get in Edinburgh, I got a Princess Diana cashmere scarf. The tartan. And
it's very nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful tartan.
Yeah, and I had looked at it on previous visits, never got it, and it literally was a spur of the moment splurge. We were walking by, and I said, "Let's go in and look at it." Next thing you know, I was walking out with it.
I don't blame you. It's. I have to admit, I do keep looking at it because it's very pretty.
It's really pretty. Yeah, it's really pretty. So that's pretty much what our souvenirs were. Oh, I got a little porcelain cat in one of the cat stores in York, because we did the cat trail, finding the cats. Yeah. So I had to get a little one to put up on a shelf. But I think that was pretty much it. No, we don't typically go to get souvenirs unless there's something with intent, like my Sense and Sensibility was.
Yeah, I mean, Doug and I, we collect fridge magnets, which everybody always loves that, but it's just that they're very small, and it means if we're traveling multiple destinations, we can fit those in the suitcase. But I have recently started collecting prints as well. Because it's just such a lovely reminder when you come back. But I like the idea of buying a Jane Austen book at Chawton. I think I might have to add that to my list when I'm back over in the UK. Hopefully later on in the year, if not early next year, for sure. Anyway, I always end the podcast with the same question. So what would be the one tip that you would share with somebody planning to visit the UK on a return trip? So not for a first-time visitor, but somebody who's already been, who's thinking, I want to go back. What would be the tip that you'd share?
I think my tip is to familiarize yourself with other modes of transportation. And it's funny because I had asked my husband the same question. What would you say? And that's what he said. I already had it written down. And because I think seeing the UK by, of course, if you're in London, it's easy to hop on the underground. It's easy to hop on a bus. It's easy to grab, a black cab. And those are all wonderful modes, and we should use them. Walk a lot, though, when you're in places, because then you see things in different ways. But I would say search out. Don't be afraid to do things like take a train, to a different place, or a bus for that matter, because I know the bus system throughout the UK is so beneficial to their travel as well, too. So that would be my tip for returning visitors. Do something different in terms of transportation and just enjoy.
Oh, well, that's really actually handy, because next week's episode is all about, we share tips for anybody planning a road trip, things that we recommend that you do, consider, again, recommend, don't ever tell anybody you've got to do these things. And the following, then 2 weeks after that is one which is 15 tips, like I shared, about taking train travel, things that we recommend that you consider doing. So that fits in really, really well. But I can't believe this is the 3rd episode with you, Deb. It's great. I can't wait there'll be another one, I'm Absolutely. Sure, every time you go back.
Anytime you need me to go over, I'm willing.
But again, I just want to say a huge thank you for helping moderate our Facebook groups. It's amazing. A huge thank you for sponsoring the podcast every month. It's huge help.
It's my pleasure.
We really appreciate that. And again, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely my pleasure, Tracy. Thanks for having me again.
And I will link to the different places, the tours, the hotels, the cafes, and different places that Deb visited on her at time when she was in the UK in the show notes, which you can find at UK Travel Planning /episode 156. But that just leaves me and Deb to say at the end of this episode, until next week, happy UK travel planning. Yeah, bye everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the UK Travel Planning Podcast. As always, show notes can be found at uktravelplanning.com. If you've enjoyed the show, why not leave us feedback via text or a review on your favourite podcast app? We love to hear from you, and you never know, you may receive a shout out in a future episode. But as always, that just leaves me to say, until next week, happy UK travel planning.